August 30th, 2023, at 11:56 a.m.
What? I said, staring incredulously at the disheveled man sitting beside me on the park bench. Gaze affixed to the ground, he reluctantly responded,
"That's when you're going to die."
He sounded exhausted, worn down, defeated, like a soldier coming home from war after his whole unit was wiped out. "That's in 2 minutes. I don't believe you."
"Believe what you want, kid. It makes no difference to me."
He glanced up at me, dark purple bags hanging low under his sullen gray eyes.
I will,"
I said, standing to leave. I'd taken no more than 2 steps when something massive crashed down behind me. I gasped, spinning on my heels. An enormous tree branch lay on the park bench, exactly where I'd been sitting. My eyes grew wide as dinner plates, and my heart began to palpitate wildly in my chest. He was right.
"You're welcome,"
the man said, brushing stray leaves from the suit as he stood. He turned to walk away as I grasped for words. How the... The man's shoes clacked against the pavement as he left, snapping me from my stupor. I trotted up next to him. A million questions joggled around in my brain all at once. But one rose to the forefront of my mind. How did he know? So, thanks for saving me?
Don't mention it,"
he said without sparing me a passing glance. How did you do that?
"Do what?"
Oh, come on. You know what I'm talking about. How did you know I was going to die? The man stopped in his tracks, turning to face me. He locked eyes with me, sending a chill rippling through my body.
"Look, kid, I've had this ability ever since I was a child. It's a curse and it's ruined my life. Be glad you don't have to bear this burden."
I stared behind him, pondering his statement. I don't think it would be that bad. It might be nice to know when people are going to die, so I can stop it, like what you did with me. The man paused, his eyes lighting up as he looked down at me.
"You would actually want this?"
"Yeah, I don't think I'd mind," I admitted, shrugging my shoulders.
"Alright, kid, I'll make you a deal. I'll transfer my power to you. I get a free conscience and you gain the ability to help, as you see it, but I'll only do this on one condition,"
he said, a smug grin tugging at the corners of his lips. I cocked an eyebrow. There it was, the catch. "What, are you going to ask for my soul or something? If that's the case, then no deal."
"Oh, no, nothing major like that. I just want something small, inconspicuous, barely even worth mentioning. My condition is that you can't transfer the power back to me under any circumstances. That's all."
A sense of relief washed over me at his revelation. "Why didn't you just say that in the first place? I'll do it," I said, motioning to shake on it.
"I'm glad that we were able to come to an agreement."
The man grabbed my hand with a ferocity that I hadn't known possible. Every muscle and tendon exploded with pain. I tried to yank my hand from the man's grip, but he was too strong.
Why are you doing this?"
I stuttered, as that awful sensation spread like wildfire to the rest of my body.
"It's not up to me. Think of it as a down payment for the transfer."
The man's visage glowed with pure elation as I dropped to the floor, thrashing violently, desperate to try to free myself from the absolute torture that I was being subjected to. My whole body ached, every cell in my system screaming in agony. I remember wondering if I was going to die. And then, everything went black. I woke to something scratchy, poking me in the face. I groggily leaned up, rubbing my eyes.
"Were you dead?"
A boy no older than 5 was standing over me holding a stick. A kid. Lovely. Nope, just tired. So I took a nap. Where's your mom, buddy?" I asked, brushing away the rocks and dirt that clung to my arms.
"She's over there,"
he said, pointing to a woman in a lavender cardigan, sitting atop the same bench that I'd almost died on.
"But you're a weirdo,"
he continued, much to my dismay.
"And she doesn't let me talk to weirdos. Bye."
And with that, he darted away. Normally, I'd be happy to be left alone, but as I watched the boy run, my heart plummeted into my stomach because a date suddenly flashed across my mind. December 18th, 2029. That meant the transfer had worked. It also meant that that boy only had 6 years to live. Well, this isn't going to be easy. I gradually mustered up the courage to do the right thing. I shuffled up to the woman, anxiously mulling over the words in my mind. I knew that I was going to sound insane, but what else could I do? If I had the chance to save a life, then I needed to seize the opportunity. The woman gave me the once-over as I stood, scanning me up and down like she was a TSA agent, sending me through a metal detector. I know this is going to sound strange, but, I can see people's deaths. Your son's is December 18th of 2029. I just felt like I needed to say something, in case there's a way to prevent it. The woman glared at me as she stood, dramatically snatching her purse. You're right. It does sound strange. And, quite frankly, I think you belong in the loony bin. Stay away from me and my son. I grappled for something, anything to say as she furiously marched away. But I kept getting distracted by the number blaring in my mind the entire time I'd been talking to her. September 25th, 2074. I glanced at the boy as his mother hurriedly ushered him to the parking lot. I breathed a sigh of relief. Oh, December 16th, 2089. I'd done it. Mission accomplished. Or so I thought. I began walking through the park to return home, ready to plop down in my bed and take a much-needed nap. I was beat. As I continued on, I passed a number of people soaking in the golden afternoon sun, a soccer team practicing shooting drills, 2 preteen girls racing on their bikes, an elderly couple watching the ducks. I knew when they were all going to die. Dates began assaulting my brain like angry hornets. February 10th, 2078, November 24th, 2056, March 19th, 2024. I couldn't stop them. They flooded my conscience, swarming my thoughts relentlessly, and it was driving me insane. I sprinted the rest of the way home, staring at the ground the entire way. I'd made a huge mistake. I needed to figure out how to ditch my newfound ability before I lost my mind. But how? Hey, Steven, how was the park? Mom asked as I trudged through the door. It was fine, I lied, averting my gaze. Is everything okay? You're pale. Steven, look at me. My heart began to thud against my chest like a jackhammer. I really didn't want to, but I was going to have to face my mom eventually. I'd have to deal with it, sooner or later. Blood pounded in my ears as I lifted my head. Time seemed to move in slow motion as I begrudgingly glanced up. I was beginning to think that it wouldn't come, but it did. August 6th, 2065. I released a breath that was caught in my throat as unbridled alleviation coursed through my veins like a drug. Oh, Mom was going to live to be 81. I'm fine, Mom. I promise. I'm just tired is all. I'm going to take a nap. All right, honey. A tinge of suspicion percolating her words. But don't sleep too late. Dinner will be ready in a few hours. I flashed her a thumbs up as I disappeared upstairs. I pushed open the bathroom door, turning on the faucet. I splashed a handful of cold water in my face. Why the hell did I think any of this would be a good idea? I mean, the man literally told me that this ability had ruined his life. My head began to spin. I needed to get a grip. I locked eyes with my reflection. All the color suddenly drained from my face. I nearly passed out, grabbing the shower rod for support. I knelt to the toilet, spewing vomit into the bowl. It's been 2 hours since then, and I'm terrified to my core, because every time I see my reflection, the date, September 2nd, 2023, won't stop flashing in my head. I've been diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder, or what most people would call multiple personality disorder. I haven't told a lot of people about it because, well, it's not an easy thing to talk about, and I have this constant fear of seeming like I'm seeking attention. And since I can't prove it, then it's just kind of useless to talk about. But what some people don't seem to understand is how nice being alone is. Because I haven't felt lonely in nearly 10 years. It wasn't as bad when I was a kid, but then things happened and it got worse. You don't have to worry, I'm not some serial killing maniac, and I'm on my meds now. But I haven't even told my psychiatrist the whole story. And it's only thanks to the anonymity of the internet that I can tell you guys. I was raised by two people who definitely thought children should be seen and not heard. I wasn't allowed to draw or sing or do anything that might be considered annoying. One of the few things I could do without getting yelled at was read and write. So I would come up with these fantastic worlds where I was a hero, saving people from terrible monsters. It was a really nice escape, especially when mom and dad would start drinking. Mostly when they yelled or started hitting people, it'd be at each other, which I preferred, especially since the other targets were me and my brother. I loved my brother, and anytime we got scared, I put on a brave face, lock us in my room, and read one of my books out loud until they went to sleep. It was about when I was 12 that I first noticed that I wasn't alone in my head. Maybe it was all the yelling, the hitting, or my overactive imagination. But I was really happy that I actually had a friend, even if he was in my own head. He called himself Vincent. I had never really heard that name before, but it was cool. He always sounded tough, and he made me feel tough. You don't need them, kid. You're good enough on your own. He was always so encouraging at the start. We'd find a nice corner of the playground, away from the other kids, and I'd tell him all about whatever book I read, or how awful one of my teachers was. And he'd just listen and comment and tell me just how proud he was of me. That was something he'd always say. I'm so proud of you. It went on until I was about 15. My brother was 11 and just about to go into 6th grade when my dad finally left my mom. He didn't say anything. I just walked in one day and my mom was crying over a picture of us from childhood. Things turned worse after that. Mom took up smoking too, and I'd find small burn marks on my brother's body. And whenever I tried to confront her, she'd say he was getting careless with the stove or he must be getting picked on at school. I couldn't prove anything, but somehow I knew that she was the one doing it. My brother was so small, and even today he's hardly 5'5" and as skinny as a rake. Mom didn't try to hurt me after Dad left, at least not physically. I was growing really fast, and when I turned 16, I was already a foot taller than her. So she tried talking down to me, tried to make me angry or sad, but it didn't work, because after every single argument, Vincent would tell me that I was a good kid, and I deserved better. I'm so proud of you. It was about this time that I noticed that there were gaps in my memory. They were just little things, like my bookmark would be further in a book than I remember, or my clothes would be on differently. I was a bit afraid, but Vincent told me it was him, and he was sorry. He said he couldn't control it really, and he was just curious about my life, that he just couldn't help but explore. I was scared at first, but I just got used to it. People who have been in abusive relationships will understand that when someone who has so much power in your life does something weird or creepy, you just forgive them, even if it's a bad thing to do. And I guess I was just lonely, and I craved attention, and he was willing to give it whenever I wanted it. It was nice for a while. Then things just sort of snapped. My brother was homesick that day. He had a terrible cold and could hardly get out of bed. It was hard for him to keep solid foods down, and he'd thrown up a lot. I told my mom to stay sober for a single day and try to take care of him. She was his goddamn mom. She was supposed to take care of him. She was supposed to love both of us. Isn't that what a mom is supposed to do? How could she do that to him? How could she do that to us? There was a fire while I was at school, started by a careless cigarette dropped on the carpet. Ruled as an accident, but even when I came home, I saw that she was absolutely hammered. The fire department barely got my brother out in time to save his life, but he got severe burns. Even to this day, the scars on his face and hands are the first thing people notice. He's scarred for the rest of his life because of that bitch. I tried to bring attention to it. I tried to do something, but no one would listen. No one ever believes me, and no one I talked to tried to help. But you'd be fucking surprised at how much oversight actually happens. I felt more hopeless that first night after the fire than I ever have. That's when Vincent spoke to me. I can help you.
You've helped me. I can make you happy. Can I make you happy?
I hardly cared anymore, so I just blacked out. We were in a crappy hotel, my mom asleep on the bed next to me when I went out. And when I woke up, she wasn't there. I thought she just went out to get more booze or to talk to the insurance people about collecting on our house. I skipped school and visited the hospital. My brother wasn't awake yet, but I like to think that maybe he could hear me when I started to read to him again. I read his favorite, The Lord of the Rings, and I even made voices for each character like I did when he was small. When I got home, Mom still wasn't back. Again, I didn't think anything of it. I was actually relieved. But after a few days, I started to get worried. I was kicked out of the hospital. I kept getting calls about insurance on my brother's hospital bill, and eventually, the police came to inquire about where she might have gone. I remember the officer that came to see me. His name was Officer Jackson. He had a very odd nose and a mustache that reminded me of a walrus.
Son, do you know anyone who might have wanted your mother gone? Anything odd? Maybe someone said something threatening to her before she disappeared?
I thought to what Vincent had said in passing, and I wasn't even planning on saying anything about that. But that's when Vincent spoke up again.
Just say no.
I suddenly felt terrified. I told the officer there was nothing, but I was starting to put some pieces together. I think he knew something was up, but he couldn't prove anything and just left me alone. I cried after that. For the first time in a long time, I was sobbing. There was the thought that I had done something, or that a voice in my head was doing something. Maybe I was going crazy. Maybe I always was crazy. Maybe I should just get some help. But like always, there was Vincent's voice. No matter what I did, no matter who I spoke to, he was there. Always there. Always encouraging me and guiding me. Always guarding me. Always making sure I did the right thing. Never a single instant alone. Because I always knew he was there. And he was always ready to remind me.
I'm so proud of you.
I'll never be lonely again. And that terrifies me. Did anyone ever mention the phrase misery loves company to you in conversation? Well, that was the truth between my boyfriend and I. My boyfriend Connor and I met at our local park about 5 years ago. We both had been going through dark times in our lives and had conveniently sat on the benches adjacent to each other near the giant oak tree in the middle of the park. I remember the sad look in his eyes as I approached him, his beautiful emerald eyes meeting my own. I remember his silky brown hair matching the same color and texture as mine. Even our highlights matched in color. I sat next to him and started a bit of small talk, mostly about the local politics. Our soft conversation quickly became heated and full of laughter. Turns out we shared a lot in common. I was an avid kayaker that traveled to different spots around the country, and turns out, so was he. I had a beautiful silver GMC Hummer to drag my kayak trailer around. He ended up walking me back to my car in the nearby parking lot, and I noticed he had the same style of car as mine. I didn't see any problems when we found his car parked next to mine. In fact, I was overjoyed. Over the next 5 years, we grew closer and closer, sharing exact interests. We moved into a small townhouse together about 2 years in, went shopping and decorated it like a fishing cabin, and adopted 2 beautiful German shepherds. We were overjoyed to see our little home coming together. Connor brought up the idea of marriage at our 5-year anniversary. I wasn't thrilled about the idea, seeing as wedding planning would affect my progress of getting my PhD in marine biology. He seemed happy with my response, as he was studying for his master's in psychology and wanted to take his time. I don't know why, but his response caught my attention. Something felt eerie about it, but nothing I could pinpoint. Over the next few days, I noticed more and more about Connor that perplexed me. His body shape matched mine, minus the womanly features, of course. His waistline was thin, small muscle lines extending from his navel to upper chest. His pelvic bones slightly pointed out from his skin. His arms lacked muscle, and his hands were bony. I looked the same, mostly due to an eating disorder I was working my way out of. His feet were abnormally big for a normal human size, and his nails grew long and oddly sharp, quicker than I've ever seen, which apart from his slightly taller stature, was the only difference we had. His hair, cheeks, eyes, and nose matched my own. I chalked this up to genetics being genetics in the past, but now that I had a second look, everything seemed off. I brought this up to my sister over the phone and requested that she talk to my mother. My mother and father are both scientists for a place called Vermilion Laboratories and have been there since they were fresh out of university. I could sense a sudden hesitance in her voice at my request. Celia? You should go see Mom in person, she said, a small quake in her voice. What? She cut me off. Just do it! It's for your own good. I sighed. All right. I grabbed my keys and pudged towards the front door. Hey, honey! I heard from the living room. Connor peeked his head out from the side wall. Where are you going? My sister told me to go see my mom about something. Why? I lifted my keys to set them into the lock, only for Connor to grab me by the wrist. I turned back, a wild look in his eyes greeting mine. Don't go! He jolted, trying to snatch the keys from me. I wrestled my arm back from him. His nails dented into my skin, tearing away flesh as he stumbled back. I quivered in shock. 3 long open wounds had been torn into my arm, pouring blood into the cracks of the wooden floor. Connor backed off in shock, his wild look shifting into panic. Without a second thought, I slammed my keys into the lock. I blacked out. The last thing I saw was Connor lunging at me, and the door flying open as I made my escape. My consciousness came back in my car at Vermilion Labs. I looked at my arm. The wounds were long and deep. I took a pocket knife and cut my shirt to use as dressing for my wounds, then quickly made my way inside, only to turn back and see Connor leaping out of his car at the end of the lot. I ran as fast as I could. Connor was right on my tail. Celia! His roar made my hair stand on edge. What the hell did I fall in love with? Who the hell is this man? Endless questions filled my mind as I ran down the seemingly endless halls. I made my way to the basement of the lab, hopping over the ledge that kept visitors from entering. I hit the first stair only to feel my ankle give away. I braced myself, each stair impact leaving bruises on my body. Connor's voice was far away enough to lend me a bit of relief. The basement was pitch black. Small, flashing red buttons from the side walls punctured the darkness. I felt around, sliding my hand along the walls, coming to a switch at the edge of the room. I turned, only to see a red button turn its trajectory towards me. I felt a shiver going down my spine. The red flashing lights were not buttons, they were eyes. I flicked on the lights to see Connor, not just one, but tons, all adorned in white jumpsuits, different numbers on each one. I froze in place. A pair of hands grabbed my shoulders, a light breath against my ear. I was made for you, Celia. Don't you see? Update. It's been a month since that post. The Connors made a unified decision that I would never leave this place. I wish I could run away, but sadly I can't. They just finished eating my legs a couple of days ago. I was able to drag myself to a computer to tell you all this story. I learned my lesson the hard way, so please, all of you, if you meet a person who looks exactly like you and shares all your interests, run. Meet them. They were made for you.